Welcome back to The Deep Life. Today we are joined by Georges Cordoba for a deep dive into the healing power of the mind. We're excited for this conversation because Georges has an inspiring story. After a 10-year battle with both cancer and conventional cancer treatment that nearly killed him, Georges discovered holistic health, cured his own cancer, and has dedicated his life to helping others do the same. He's a holistic health coach, a therapist, hypnotherapist, best-selling author, and so much more. Georges, welcome to The Deep Life.
Thank you. Thank you so much, guys. It's an honor to be with you guys. I waited a few months, but I really loved what you had to offer on your podcast. So I'm glad to be here.
Yes, the timing's always divine. We're thrilled to have you, honored to have you, and can't wait to share your inspirational story with our listeners.
Georges, I obviously brushed through your story there in the intro. There's too much for us. It would be the whole show if I really read through your whole resume. But could you take us back to that point where you were going through the cancer treatment, things obviously weren't working for you, and you decided to take that leap and take the holistic, natural path toward your healing?
Sure. But I'd like to actually go back a little in the story and share that from my Greek side of the family, and you just were mentioning some experiences that you've had recently with cancer, with relatives and stuff. But I remember being 4 years old and losing my Greek grandfather and then his two brothers, all three they all migrated to Venezuela. I was born in Venezuela. After World War II, my parents, my dad migrated from Madrid, Spain, and my mother from Greece, their families. And so I saw that as a kid. Then my grandmother's sisters both lost their life with cancer. One of my mother's cousin and my godfather lost his life of lung cancer, and so on, to the point that then later on in my life, I lost my mother's brother, my uncle, from cancer, lung cancer, and then my mother from lung cancer. And 3 weeks after her passing, which she had a rough, let's say last year of his life was really rough. That really hurt me a lot during that process. And then 3 weeks after she passed from cancer, I was diagnosed with advanced melanoma.
Wow.
And it was advanced. It started on my scalp, and I had already gone through my lymph nodes. So it wasn't like, okay, you were stage two, and then I was already stage 4. I had some cancer in my lymph nodes, and so that's how the journey started. But speaking of the mind, one of the 12 rules of the mind is that the mind goes to what is familiar. And for us in the West, what's familiar and what they made us believe is that we have to go running to an oncologist. There's no other option in our minds. And it's changing. You guys were saying that it is actually changing. That's right. It's great. There's 8 million cancer survivors that went natural like me. And that is great news.
Yeah.
But media and pharma are not going to tell you that. But in any case, I did the same thing. I went to an oncologist, and my whole process started. I had, like you mentioned, I battled the disease for 10 years. I had 10 surgeries, and I had mets in the brain. And that right after that, my first craniotomy, which maybe you can see, it was from ear to ear.
Wow.
They gave me this new chemo that would penetrate the brain, because the brain is very, very cautious about what goes in there. So they managed to do that, and they gave it to me in capsules. By the way, $1,000 each capsule. So yeah. I don't want to get going there, so because we have a little bit of an agenda. But The whole thing there, that was year 8, the beginning of my 8th year. So that was my 8th surgery. I had, at one point, I had two surgeries in 1 year. In the craniotomies, by the way. So the protocol was having one capsule Monday through Friday, one a day, take a break a week, and then start another week. On my 6th one, my second Monday, let's say, I had a decision. I'm a person of faith. I meditate a lot. I nourish myself even before I was sick. But I made a decision. I took a leap of faith and said, you know what, this is not working for me. Thank God for the surgeries, because I will not be talking here. I don't have anything against, the medical world. It's really the conventional treatment and the business behind that I had a problem. But for a while, I was basically doing the same thing as everybody else. So at that point, and here's the answer, I made a decision. My wife at that point was in the medical world. My daughter's godparents are both physicians. One is a surgeon. And they thought I was crazy when I told them, look, I'm going to stop this. And they say, no, you're crazy. Just keep doing it. And I say, look, it's not working for me. I was sure, because of meditation and prayer and visualization, which I'll tell you, in my best-selling book, I talk a lot about the healing power of the mind, because it had a great role in my healing. And I used that when I was in my competitive years for tennis. That's where I learned it. I learned it from an Olympian from Yugoslavia that came and actually coached us, the national junior team, before I went to school. But I used that in some of the books that he recommended were really, really good for me at that time. So I made a decision against everyone. I said, look, my intuition, which we lose that power of our intuition through the years. We give it to our teachers, pastors, uncle, parents, and then ultimately we give that power to our doctors, and we become a patient, which I always said, I'm not going to be a patient. I'm not going to take that attitude. I saw my cancer as another opponent, like in tennis. So I studied it and I went for it, even though I was still for 7 years, almost 8 years. It wasn't really 8, my first craniotomy, but when I had my first craniotomy, I said, I'm not going to live this way. Surgery, remission, treatment, recurrence, surgery, remission, treatment, no way. And so I made that decision. And the moment that I made that decision, at the same time, actually a little before, I realized that I stopped saying, why me? Because really, life doesn't happen to you, life happens for you. And the situation was that I realized that it was my fault. I had all this emotional stuff, and we'll talk a little bit about that, how emotions have a role in being ill. But so I made that decision. I kind of like made peace with myself and surrendered to the process, but not to the conventional process. I said, there's got to be something else. And the moment that I made that decision, I call it God, but the universe started sending me angels, people that I had no idea. I never thought they would step forward to help us financially, to help us in support, prayer, different philosophies. I had Indian kids and Pakistani kids working on my teams before I made another decision, which was jumping from being a CTO to coaching. That was my second leap of faith. But so I made that decision, and immediately I went to a naturopath. The first angel came to my life. It was my best buddies and tennis doubles player, his wife. He said, look, Georges, my sister went to this naturopath in Palm Beach. I used to live in Florida because of my IBM background and Accenture. And I would love for you to go. And I said, yeah, I mean, what is it? It's so natural. So I went and visited this guy. He passed away a year and a half ago, and he says, let me do a scan. It's not invasive. It was not approved by the FDA, by the way. I think he got it from Germany or Switzerland. I don't remember where, but this guy, he was, amazing, Dr. Tonsky. And so he did this scan. He put some kind of like barrier feedback. It was wires in my head, in my hands, and my feet. And then I could see in this software, I could see myself inside on the screen. My screen was like in the back of your wall there. It was yellow, like it was a 4th of July. It was so acidic. I was so inflamed from all the chemo and all this stuff. And which, by the way, acidity is where disease likes to be. And we'll talk about that in a second. So I went to him and he showed me this. And then he goes, hey, Georges, you know that if you manage to balance your pH, disease could not grow. And if you have it like you do, you're going to eliminate the environment. If you manage to balance your pH, you can eliminate the environment where the cells, they thrive to grow and duplicate. And that made so much sense to me. I had already made the decision to go. So we went through a 21-day detox or reset, as he called it. And then we did a second scan, and it was like 9 a day. Plus, obviously, after my 6th, 7th day, I was feeling amazing. People would ask me, what's going on with you? I would protect myself mentally because the whole thing, remember the rule of the mind, people will go, oh, Georges, how you doing? You know, how is everything? Are you managing? I would actually, before I went out, I protect myself and I would just say how I felt. I feel great. How about you? And they could not understand that attitude. You know, they thought I was going to play the role of victim and stuff like that. Never. And so I did, we took a break and we did a second 21-day detox. And on the 3rd scan, I was clear. I was so energetic. And just basically, I said, man, I made the right decision. Now, recurrences continue to happen. And even though I had just stopped, melanoma is very aggressive. It's probably the most aggressive type of cancer out there. And then I said, why does this keep happening? And thank God they were operable. My brain, I had 4 brain surgeries and 2 gamma knives. And out of the 8 tumors I had, 2 were not operable in the back lobe. So keep that in mind, because that's where the power of the mind and faith comes to play. So you can stop me whenever you want if you have questions.
No, this is great.
I feel I'm so enthralled by the story. I'm so inspired. It's incredible, and what you're saying resonates. On a level of intuition, on deep truth and understanding. Power that each of us hold as individuals when we're able to cultivate that. And I'm curious because I feel like you didn't gloss over this, but I want the audience to really hear, like you've said so many beautiful sentences about, visualization and like the power that tennis helped you play. Like you're studying your opponent. It was almost as though life was preparing you for this very intense time of your life. Yeah. And you probably didn't realize that, as a child growing up and then your teen years, 20 years, 30s, and then getting to your old age when something like this happens, everything that you went through before that, even though it maybe wasn't a challenge, you were able to go within and, listen to that intuition and say like, okay, here I am. But what did it actually feel like to go against what your wife was saying, to go against what the closest people in your life are saying, and really tap into that essence of who you are to say, no, this is, I've got this. There's something in me telling me to go a different route. What was that like for you?
Yeah, well, first of all, healing, and this is very, very important for everybody to listen to. Healing happens from the inside out. It just does it. That's a reality. It's a universal law, and that we have the power to heal. And we, just as we made ourselves sick, it's not hereditary, by the way. And 98% of chronic diseases, including cancer, is not hereditary. If you want to find out more about that, check out the book Epigenetics.
Yes.
And so, so going back to, because you asked this question, I'd like to share that a few things. All disease, all chronic disease. I just did a talk in Toronto the last weekend of November. I went to a summit, and I was one of the speakers. And there was a guy that his title was holistic MD. He's an MD. He had cancer, not a oncologist, but he had cancer and did the same thing as everybody does. Let me just go and do what everybody does. But on year 3, he realized that he wasn't going anywhere, feeling really bad. So he started to look out for other alternatives and started to do yoga, started to do Qigong. By the way, I'm a Reiki master. We work with energies and chakras, unleashing the blocks. My wife is an expert for that. She was in the medical world, but when I made my shift, she did it too, which was, yeah.
I love that.
And yeah, because I have to share this. I look back now at that battle, and I see my survival as a blessing. Just you mentioned that, because God or the universe gave me the chance to sing the song I was born to sing. My purpose, that had to actually happen for me to shift from being a CTO, very comfortable, and going to start a new entrepreneurship in the health world. But that was my calling. And for me, this is not work. I just love to help people. And now putting together some things, I did the hypnotherapy last year. I finished, it was a 14-month program. And just to add more value, as a nutritionist, I help with so here's how disease happened. This is important. This guy, this MD, holistic MD, said all chronic disease, no exceptions, it starts in an inflamed body. So if we are acidic inside, we're just a bomb, waiting to explode. Sooner or later we'll get the body's gonna send us a medical bill. Hey, you sick. So we have to change some things to manage this balancing the pH. And it's not only what we eat, because I like to share that in terms of nutrition, and I actually specialize on the digestive system, but in terms of digestion and nutrition, 25% is what you eat. 75% is who you are when you're eating. Are you eating stressed out? Are you in a hurry because you're gonna do errands? Or in the US, the average chewing is 6 times before we swallow, which is crazy because the stomach is not ready to receive unprocessed foods. We have to process that as we chew, and the saliva enzymes process the food for us. So that's one reason why we start getting acidity in the body, because we're stressed, we're in a hurry, we eat fast, and the stomach does not know what to do, and it sends its stuff to fat, and that fat becomes acidic. Plus, your digestion didn't go well, so 30 minutes later, you're hungry again because you didn't do nutrition to your body. So ergo, how many people are now so out of weight, just way overweight. And I see it even in the gym that I go. I mean, I see people and you just go, hey, look, especially youngsters, and I like to just approach them and say, look, I can give you some tips. You don't have to do dieting. That doesn't work. You have to change your ways. So one of the things that I work as a coach is I call it the 4-leg legs of the table metaphor. One of the legs is your physical body, the other one is your emotional body, then your mental self, and then your spiritual body, you know? And if one of those legs are missing, you cannot eat in that table. I mean,
I love that metaphor. Oh my gosh, can I use that?
yeah.
I'll give you credit for it, but I love that metaphor. That's
great.
amazing.
Yeah, yes. And so what happened to me when I went to the natural route is that things started, I became more creative. I became more confident. You know, I just thought I'm going to get ready, like if I was playing my toughest opponent in tennis. So I studied everything I could. Google was already, I was diagnosed in 2002. By the way, this last July was my 12th year free of cancer.
Oh, beautiful. beautiful.
And so, so I started wondering why I would get all these recurrences. Still, you know, I was clean and I was working on. And what happens is, and this is, you know, this doctors, they're trying to help you with the only thing they know. That's it. They're not nutritionists. They're not psychologists. They're not acupuncturists. They're not, you know, massage therapies, Reiki masters. They're not. So that's great now with functional medicine that they're starting to do some of this stuff, that's great news. But recurrences happen because until you find the root cause of what started the whole thing. And guess what? This is another, for me, it was news. It was a year ago, I go to the dermatologist once a year. And I told her about this 18-year-old kid I was working with melanoma tumors in the brain, and 18 years old. And I said, the kid you could tell he's not exposed to the sun. He's actually introvert, he's at home. And he says, well, Georges, we just found out that melanoma and skin cancer is also emotional. All disease are emotional. So here's the tip. I had to actually go and explore that. But you have to humble yourself, open your heart and say, hey, you know what? It was my fault. This is not why. I created this, but I know then that I can fix it. So I started with the emotional leg of the table. Because my physical leg, I was already clear, you know, and with the mental, I'll share some things. But on the emotional side, I realized that I had a lot of clutter as I grew up. Emotional clutter, beliefs that we create. And then when I did the hypnotism, it all makes sense. I said, wow, if people know how much serotonin or cortisol we produce when we remember and we have some trauma or, you know, whatever we create as a belief that is no longer good for us. And then you hear a song or watch a TV thing, a scene, and you remember, you're producing cortisol, which is, and serotonin, which actually produce acidic in the body. But if you're producing that and you're eating fast, you're doubling all the stuff, and you see the visual cycle. So in my case, guys, I have to say that forgiveness was a key component to my healing too. Forgiving others, asking for forgiveness, and then the toughest one, forgiving myself. Because we somehow create a belief, even let's say your parents were arguing and you think, oh, it's my fault or whatever, you know, and remind me about that because I want to share something with your audience. But it was there that that things started to accelerate in terms of recurrences. And then all of a sudden, when I deal with that, when I clear all that clutter in that leg of the table, my recurrences stopped. No more recurrences. Yeah. And when I hear this MD that said all disease start, and then the dermatologist saying that all disease is emotional, there you go. And then if you do not know the power of your mind, you know, you're just a little pigeon working, you know, for this God, which is your doctor. And then if the doctor tells you, which has happened, we could be talking 3 hours, hey, I have nothing else to do. Go try something else. Oh, after 4 years and all this money, you're telling me to go do something else because you don't have a solution? How many times you've heard that?
Oh God, yes,
Yeah.
yes. Wow.
Oh, it's crazy. So here comes the mind and how I use that. You remember that Pac-Man game, the
Yes.
little creature? I used to visualize at least 3 times a day those little creatures going around my inside and eating up all the tumors in my body.
Oh my
But
God.
I could see this. I could just see it and feel it. And guess what? The mind does everything you say, you think, or you visualize.
Mhm.
So you might as well, that's another rule of the mind, and it learns by repetition. So if I tell the audience, your ego is not going to like this, but you say in the present moment, because the mind doesn't know yesterday or tomorrow, but in the present moment, in the moment you say, I am healed, I am healed, I am healed, I am healed, I am. And you continue to do that. I used to do these affirmations, I don't know how many times a day. I was a CTO, so I would, at lunch, I would close my door and lay down with a yoga mat behind my desk and do this for a while,
Wow.
And then because of, my faith and my Reiki, I did Reiki in the beginning of my journey, my cancer journey, and my wife and I, 4 years later, we became masters. We're Reiki teachers now. We can do workshops and stuff like that, which was wonderful. So I would imagine as well, I was just throwing all this stuff to my subconscious mind. Because again, another rule of the mind is it doesn't know if what you're saying is true or not. So whatever you say, you might as well say something positive. Folks, the doctor is not your God. The healer is up there. It's bigger than us. And it gave the design. He designed us to really manage ourselves. If we take time for ourselves, which very little people, that's another problem, does. And time is, as you guys know, I know it, it's not a renewable resource. We're all, after this meeting today, that's it. It's meeting is not here anymore. So I actually imagined this beautiful, my favorite color is light blue and also light pink, which is really, I'm a Catholic Christian, so we have this from Jesus of mercy, because that's another thing, it's love. What Jesus as a man taught us was love and service. So, but there is a picture of him with this rays coming from his heart. So I would imagine those hearts coming through my head and just melting every little tumor in my body. So with affirmations, and then I read this amazing book when I was a senior in college. I had an amazing year, but I went to Venezuela and did the South American Open, and I lost in the finals. I wasn't even a seeded player, and I was winning that much. That match, I was up 4 sets, if you understand tennis, but I lost in almost 5 hours, but I had the whole match I was ahead. And our coach, because that guy, which was one of my idols, 80 years older than me, as a junior, you look at this guy winning and, going to the US and do tennis and stuff. But I have a chapter in my book that is titled A Gift for Life. And what happened is this coach, a French guy that migrated to Venezuela, he still had this accent. He never lost his French accent, but he came to see us, and both of us were his pupils in different years. And he came to see us, and we both, once we finished and embraced ourselves, hey, great match, and we got our trophies, we didn't even think about it. We went to see Mr. Savvy, the prophet. We call him the Master Savvy. And he said, wow, great match, great match. And my opponent left, and he says, Georges, you're playing awesome, and you lost here. You lost here. So I said, yeah, I guess. I mean, I really got bothered of him hitting gloves and changing the pace of the match. And so for me, he was really a hero, a mentor. And I got home, and the next day, it was a Tuesday. I was coming back to the States to do my senior year. And I get home and my mom says, hey, Prof. Savi gave you a call. He wants to ask you to go to lunch. And I go, wow. And so that was an honor. And so I called him and said, can you come tomorrow? I said, yeah, because I'm leaving Friday. So I went to where he was now, coaching kids and stuff. And we go into lunch. And again, he says, man, you're playing so good. So I decided to give you this present. And he gave me this book. The book is titled The Power of Your Subconscious Mind by Dr. Murphy. And he says, just read it before you start your season. And I guarantee you it's going to help you so much with your tennis. But you know what, Georges? It's going to help you during your life. And that book was key to have. I read it so many, like 4 times in my 10 years again, by fighting cancer. And the reason for that, and here's another part of the mind, he explains in this book, not me, but he has this, he explains how the subconscious mind works. And now that I did hypnotherapy even more, but imagine you're in a cruise ship, a cruise, and the captain tells the machinery guys, which they don't see anything. They only take orders from the captain, and they have the faith that the captain is right. Do this, do that. Well, that's how our mind, our conscious mind and subconscious mind relate. So what commands you send to the machinery room, in our case to our subconscious mind, it does it. It does work. We have to be patient. It's not in our time. The ego, it just doesn't, we have to learn how to say to the ego, hey, you know what? You can continue, but I'm going to drive. You could be the co-pilot now, and you have to play these mind games to do this. So at the end of the day, then there was this last 2 tumors that were not operable. And there is something that I like to share, but it is really the power of faith. In faith, forget religion. You could be spiritual and not religious, by the way, or you could be religious and not spiritual, or you could be both because of your upbringing. That's okay if you really understand that. So here's the deal. Faith is the certainty of what you want. Because you know that if you take action, there is something bigger, but the key is taking action. It's not a magic one. Then that thing that is bigger than us would really help us. But we have to, put this faith into action. Just like people at the beginning of every year, New Year's resolution, everybody has this illusion. Oh yeah, but illusion without this intention. Oh, I'm going to lose weight, I'm going to do this. But without action, that becomes an illusion. And then everybody, March, April, that's it. There's only like 10 people doing it, 10%. So I knew all these things because I really, and 5 kids. You have to remember, and this is something that we had a 7-year-old twin boys, a girl, our only girl, 7-year-old at that time. The twin boys, there were 9. Then we had our second, then we had Nico, who was 12, and Alex, the one that lives in LA, he was 13. And then, they lost their grandmother 3 weeks before my diagnosis. So they had, in a way, had to grow up their teen years wondering if daddy was going to survive or not, or going like grandma, They called her Yaya. But with those 2 tumors in the back, somebody called us. We went to see the doctor because after a follow-up, it showed that I had another tumor by the area of where we have our motor speech. And so, so we went to see the results. In fact, it was positive. I had these tumors there. It was quite large tumor. I don't know if we can see it, but I look like a little bit like a road atlas. I have a bunch of surgeries, 4 were in my brain, but yeah, I had 53 between the two sides of the neck, 53 lymph nodes removed.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and 1 muscle in one side because there were 3 lymph nodes on my first biceptomy, or it's not called, it's lymphosectomy. There were 3 tumors that I couldn't take out. So they decided to sacrifice a muscle in my neck, in my throat around here, so they could get those 3 out. And guess what? Out of those 23, those 3 were positive.
Oh, wow.
Imagine, I said, it wasn't my time. It wasn't my time,
Yeah.
And then 6 months later, with the first chemotherapy, it didn't work, and I got it. So I had to remove 22 on this side, no muscle, but 2 of them were positive, and the whole thing, it's just crazy. But going back to those tumors, the guy said, look, we're gonna have to do a craniotomy for this one. It's operable. However, because it's so close to your speech, we're gonna have to do it like a dentist. It's a local anesthesia. So you're gonna hear the sawing and all this stuff, and then the other thing is that the tumors in the back with the I had 2 gamma knives. They just did not respond. They were there. They were growing very little, but they were not operable. So that was it. That was on Monday, and he said, "Come on Wednesday." So we do the pre-op MRI, and then we'll have the operation Thursday because I'm going on vacation Friday. But we get home. This is Monday, and I receive a call in the evening by one of my best friend's sister, who also play tennis, and she says, George, I had a dream of you, and I'd like to invite you on Tuesday, tomorrow evening, to a prayer group. And I just had this urge, and I also dream of Fabio, which is one of his brothers, and we were in the same age. Fabio couldn't go, but I said, well, she was kind of nervous, and I said, hey, if you invited me, and here's something that please remind me, I don't know if we're gonna go out of time, learning how to receive is key too. I'm writing a book right now, it's called The Miracles Formula, and I'll tell you how that happens. But anyway, I say, Danny, of course, Daniela, yeah, I'll go. And so my wife couldn't go. I was feeling good. I was not in any, I had already by that time stopped all the chemo and all this stuff. So I go to this prayer group, and she said that there was a lady that had the talent of imposing hands, which we all do, by the way. We have that God-given process. You hurt yourself now. What's the first thing you do? You put your hand there. So, because we have that power. But anyway, I don't want to get on a tangent. So I go, and this lady that had just come from, I think it was Guatemala or Mexico, and she had a cold. So she was there, but she was in the chapel, and she will be praying for me and somebody else also that was sick. And so I went to the first pew, and right close to the altar, and I'm thankful, and I'm thinking, hey, Lord, just give me the best anesthetic nurses, and the doctor, which I already knew, that he was only 38 years old, but he was highly recommended. So all of a sudden we're starting praying, and this lady comes out and asks Daniela says, where's Georges? He says, it's that guy over there in the front. So she comes and she taps my shoulder and says, hey, Georges, come back with me to the back. I want to pray for you. And she told me her name, and I knew it was her. Her name was, by the way, Mary of the Angels, Maria de los Ángeles. Crazy. So we go back there, and she starts praying on me and on my shoulders. And suddenly, I started bursting in tears. But they were kind of like warm tears. I could feel this healing, this amazing warm flush around my, I guess, my lymphatic system inside of me. And I just let my tears come forward. And they say they're crying, especially for men. We don't get into that, but they tell us, men, don't cry. No, it's really healthy. We're cleaning our soul when we crying and our emotions and things like that. So she does that, and then when she finishes, she started speaking in tongues. I couldn't understand, but I just felt this. It was real, and I was certain that I was healing. And then she says, she finishes and she looks at me and says, "You have something big this week, huh?" And I said, "Yeah. I'm having a brain tumor, melanoma tumor removed from my close to my speech." And she goes, "Here, let's do some more praying." And now she puts her hands in my head and starts again. And this whole thing started again. And then when she finishes, she goes, "Georges, I would not be surprised that you don't have to have that surgery on Thursday."
Wow.
And I go, "Me neither," with what I just felt, So I go into the front, and when they finish, they all hold hands and they do a few testimonials. And she said, Daniela did not know that my wife and I said, let's not tell people, because at that point, that was my last craniotomy and my third one. I had 2 more surgeries after that, but they were not in the brain. They were in my gluteus muscles. Imagine, this disease is crazy. Yeah. So anyway, I go home. Oh, by the way, she goes, "Hey, George is here. He's got an operation, a surgery on the brain surgery on Thursdays." But I told him that I would not be surprised if he has to do it. And Daniela, then Danny said, "Oh my God, I didn't know this." And then she was mad. I said, "Why didn't you tell us?" I said, "Well, it's one more surgery, but she took it personal, so she came and she told everybody, so they were there in the hospital. But what happens, I get home, guys, and my wife says, "What happened to you? What's going on? You look different. What happened?" So I told her, and I said, "Look, I don't know if I need to have this surgery." And she goes, "What are you gonna do?" And I said, "Well, I'm gonna meditate. I'm gonna sleep on it, and then because on Wednesday we had to do the MRI. They put like a helmet on you so they see where they're gonna do the incision." And so on Monday she goes, "So what are you gonna do?" She was, as a caregiver, man, people don't think about the caregivers. They live the disease too. You guys know it. I mean, everybody, by the way, everybody has indirectly or directly has dealt with cancer. So she asked me, and I go, "No, let's go. I think let's just go and see what's going on, and we're gonna have the MRI." So we go. I have the MRI. On Thursday, we're there really early, 6:30, and then we're waiting for the pre-op stuff and the doctor to come in, the neurosurgeon. And all of a sudden, he walks in with a smile from ear to ear, and he goes, "I have 2 good pieces of news. Which one do you want first?" And my wife and I looked at each other because she knew what happened on Tuesday night. And I said, "Well, they're both good. Tell me one of them first." And, they're both good. And she goes, "Oh, the first one is that we had a 1-hour conference with other Mayo clinics. And we concluded that you don't have to be awakened for the surgery. And the second good news is that the 2 inoperable tumors are not there. But it may be a false negative. So we're going to check out on the post-op MRI. And so it was a successful MRI. a craniotomy. I should have a bunch of cavities in my brain. Only I have is, in my head, only a couple. For some reason, I healed very good. And then on Friday, they say, well, the surgery went excellent, and those 2 tumors are gone. They're gone.
Wow.
And so the last 2 brain tumors disappeared.
Yeah.
And so again, that's if I would have said no, because I don't believe in this. And so I'd like to finish up with this that is very important. The power there's another book that I have the outline when I finish the Miracles Formula. It's called The Healing Power of Forgiveness. And obviously the power of the mind. There's so many books about this, but learning the 11 rules of the mind, I said, no, people need to do this. And what I'm going to do with your audience and with you guys as a giveaway, I'm going to give you a bunch of documents that have to do with forgiveness, the power of the mind, the rules of the mind, how to create a balanced pH body. So
Thank you. I'm going to dive in myself. So I think they're good.
Yes, you guys look very healthy, and that's good. But
And
it
a
is good.
holistic lifestyle coach too.
Okay.
My language.
Yeah, yeah.
I love it all.
And I was a nutritionist for a long time. So yeah, we're very familiar with all you're talking about.
Oh, nice. I love it. I think you were one of the first ones that I applied back in August or September.
Yeah.
And basically, I knew, and I put out, I'll contact them and see, look, we're talking, and time flies, by the way. It's crazy. But here's the thing. Most of us have a hard time receiving. It's a lot easier for us to give than to receive. And you see examples like you go with somebody to lunch and they want to pay the bill, or vice versa. Oh, no, thank you. No, please. Allow yourself to be loved. Learn how to receive. And here's the problem. And this is again a mindset and an emotional situation. Most of us don't believe that we're worth receiving. And that's really the problem. The Miracles Formula, by the way, is if you guys are gonna give me something from the heart, no hidden agenda, and I open my heart and receive it with love, a channel opens, and that's where the universe creates the miracles. And if you look at Jesus as a man, in his miracles, he never said, "Oh, I'm the guy." No, he always said, "Elsie, your faith has healed you."
Yeah. Yes.
And the lady, and so one of the angels that came to me, I was going to church every morning. I worked my first year and a half. I kept trying to work in spite of my feelings, how I was feeling physically and actually emotionally too, and mentally. It's really not something that I wish to anybody, to get this diagnosed, and that's why it's important to prevent. But the bottom line is that if you open your heart, if you really open, because I'm not a quoter of the Bible, but there were a few. This lady, after coming out from church, I had actually asked, God, in my case, to give me a chance to be a better dad, see my daughter, because we're Catholic, doing her first communion. She was 7 years old, and so it would take a few years after that, and things like that, and being a better husband, a better friend, and a better Christian, help somebody. So I'm going to the parking lot after the service, and this lady, Miriam, it's another angel, she goes, "Hey, Georges," and I stop, and she comes over. She goes, "My name is Miriam. I recognize her from being in, at church, but I didn't know her." And she goes, I need a favor from you." And I go, "Well, yeah, I just prayed to help somebody. How can I help you?" And she tells me, "Look, Even Jesus, before he had his passion, he was nervous as a man. He was scared. He was anxious. I'm sure you're like that, and I'm pretty sure you wake up every night. And I said, every night, ma'am. And it's around 3 in the morning. I see my wife is okay. I go around and see the kids in their bedrooms, and then I just sit on the living room sometimes, because I play the piano, and so I had a real piano, and then I had some that I could use my headphones, so I would play, and from a few songs came from there. But she goes, okay, next time you wake up, this is my favor that I'm asking you, grab the Bible and focus on Jesus's miracles. And I said, okay. And lo and behold, I woke up, I grabbed my Bible, it's a little bit of the dust of it. And the first thing I opened was a miracle, the lady that could not stop bleeding. And then I just kept doing, I spent, I don't know, maybe an hour until I fell asleep. I just felt that I go back to bed. And every single time Jesus said, your faith has healed you. And then there is another thing that really helped me humble myself and understand that I had, to do the work, because it was my fault to getting sick. And so here it is. This is one that I remember because it really shook me. It's in the book of Revelations, and it's the Apostle John that had this vision, and the whole thing is, and I remember this one. Don't think that I'm like that. I'm ashamed not to know it, but I'm not that type of, let's say, Bible expert. But on chapter 3, verse 20, he has this vision that says, hey, I'm knocking on the door. If you listen and you open, then I will come in and we will dine together. Because that door does not have an outside doorknob. It's on the inside. So we have to open it. So when we open that, so we can receive, miracles happen. If there's somebody there, so many angels helped us in many ways, because we had a pretty good lifestyle, 5 kids though, so vacations have to stop. We sold the car a year and a half later because I just was not able to work. I worked in the first part, but after 18 months, it was only 1 income and 7 in the family. So I did a little consulting, but we managed, but we had to really, and the positive thing for all of us is that it really made us stronger. My kids really, my wife was really worried about telling them to pray for me, because she thought, well, and if he dies, they're going to lose their faith. That's part of her thinking, but it didn't happen. I said, no, tell them. And I would say, pray for me, guys, pray for me. I always told them, this can't happen. God didn't give me this blessing of 5 kids, and now it's going to take me right away. So.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
I think just having that faith and just knowing that it wasn't your time, that makes such a difference.
Yeah. When I go do a talk, by the way, whether it's 5 people or, maybe there's some, 1,000 people, I just always, somebody presents me and then I break the ice this way. I ask people, by the way, I have a question. Is anybody in the audience terminal? And then you always see 1 or 2, 3 people, a little shy, but they raise their hand. And I say, I just, okay, bring them down. And then I say, if this was a test, all of you that didn't raise your hand flunked, because we're all terminal. We are all terminal. We just don't know when, but we are going to go.
Oh my gosh, yes.
And I do that on purpose because, again, talk about the mind. It's a mindset. And the same thing as I told you earlier, the doctor sends you home to die or to do something else. And then you allow that to really influence you and you die. You just die within weeks, So, and then I say, well, now I have another question and I'll get started. I say, raise your hands if you are absolutely sure that tomorrow morning you open your eyes. And no one raises their, and so then I say a little bit in the talk, I talk about this. This is amazing. You know, I have to finish by telling you a miracle, okay? We are all miracles, by the way. The moment that we were born, we're a miracle. But I was interviewed in a podcast early last year, and this a lady from Atlanta, a cohort of my health coach institute. We studied together. We did transformational coaching, and so she started her podcast. I was like her 10th episode, and she happens to be in this international Zoom thing for women's health or something like that, and she shared my episode, and one of the ladies there, her name is Lucy, immediately called her mom in Australia, 2 hours from Melbourne. And the reason for that is her younger brother, 38 years old, was sent home with morphine and steroids to die because they had nothing else to do. And so she calls her mom. I don't know this. I mean, this is happening. And then all of a sudden, I receive an email from this lady, Sally Ryan, and explaining me what was going on with her son. And, you know, he was just, and she goes, I know it's not his time. And he's not talking much because he's doped up. I mean, they have him on morphine and steroids. He had a pretty rough diagnosis, similar to melanoma, but it really was attacking her brain cells and also her spinal cord, his spinal cord. So I said, what do I do? I usually do a few Reiki signs and I do a nice little prayer of thankfulness before my sessions, and then I finish up with a prayer. It's pretty much universal, so I don't worry about, you know, like I say, this is spirituality. I'm not going into, you know, stuff. And so she reached out and said, okay, let's meet. It'll be 5 o'clock, 5:30 my time on Monday. It will be Tuesday morning for you guys. And so we had our first session at 9 in the morning for them, 8:30. And so they wake Ryan, Matt up, and Matt is his name. And he was kind of doped out. They helped him to go to by the way, he was downstairs, and actually he would not live there. He was living in Melbourne, but you know, he couldn't be alone. So by the way, I found out he was an amazing tennis player.
Oh, wow.
And his doubles partner was his physical therapist. He would go there on Fridays just to help him die, because that's really what they were doing.
Right.
I'm praying. I said, what do I do? So I said, well, maybe I'll work on the spiritual leg, you know, and the mental, you know. But again, then I said, well, maybe there's emotions. But I mean, it was a first for me. I mean, I just never, and so we had the first session, and she goes, and I could see her mom wanted to hire me. You know, it's just it was, I mean, they saw the story, you know, the podcast, and so I said, okay, well, let's go week to week. And we're gonna work on the mind, and we're gonna work on, and I had already finished my hypnotherapy stuff. So we're gonna work on the mind, emotions, and we're gonna go week to week. So that first session was really a discovery session. The first week, he would never, up until like 2 months later, he was sent to die. And so I'm giving you a clue here. 2 months later, it's the first time he talked to me. He was always, but 2 weeks after that first session, after the second week, Friday, when Eddie, his doubles partner, will come to do the therapy, he asked him and his mom and dad to ask the doctor to take the morphine away. He didn't want to be on morphine.
Mm.
So the doctor, first it was what? He probably was thinking, my goodness, he's still alive?
Yeah.
Take it, take his, okay, yeah, that one could be almost immediate. And then the week later, he's standing, they were talking, and he's standing and calls him. This is after his third session. He's standing from his wheelchair, and he said, let's ask the doctor to start taking the steroids off as well.
Wow.
And
Wow.
then he surprises them, and then obviously you have no idea all the emails that I was receiving from Sally, her mom. They say mom, and so he says, "Can you guys hold my arms and walk me around the block?"
Wow. Oh my
And
God.
and then to make it short, in about 6 weeks, they walked. He was about 3/4 of a mile from the tennis courts where they used to work out, and he asked Eddie to walk him there, but not holding him. They walked over and took a break. Eddie was worried. I said, "Hey, let's go back. We can ask him to come and pick us up." No, they walked about an hour and a half. And well, and there he is. Now he's at the beach. They had dinner the other day. They went out to eat, and so for me as a coach and as somebody that really believes on this four legs of the table, I mean, I guess it's his faith, but it's also his courage. His I don't know how to explain this, but he just wanted to live. He wasn't ready to go.
But it reminds me of what you said about nutrition earlier, where it's 25% what we eat, but it's 75% who you are.
Who you are, yes.
With all the different modalities and the treatment and everything, it's who you are as you're going through.
Yeah.
He shifted who
Absolutely.
he was, it sounds like, and was able to.
Yeah. Absolutely. And
Yeah.
That story is well, your story is incredible, and you're sharing it. But it's also really nice for people to hear that it's not necessarily unique to you. It's not.
and it gives me I was never uncertain, but I say, well, see, I was born for this. Because some of my clients have passed. They just, it was their turn. But the success stories it's just way over the ones that didn't make it. And in the 7 years that I've been doing this, a little over 7 years now, four of my clients decided to go 100% natural like I did.
Wow.
And out of the four, three are still alive. The other one, a lady from London, she was a little bit, I mean, I have this lady that just reached out Sunday, and she has some melanoma, well, suspicious of melanoma moles in her back, and she goes, what should I do, and this and that. And so, I get that stuff too. I said, well, why don't we have a clarity call? But my philosophy was, if you could take the stuff out, take it out. Because she was, again, fear, which we didn't talk about it, but which is the opposite of faith. If I just heard that maybe they do it wrong and then the cancer goes all over the place. And I said, no, it doesn't work that way. It's, especially nowadays. I mean, these guys are really good folks. Don't go to some clinic and nobody knows, but most hospitals, especially in the U.S., are we have top-notch surgeons, and so. But what I was going to say is that at the end of the day, it is very fulfilling to know that I made really the second leap of faith, which is that I loved doing software for companies, big companies, brick and mortars, help them be productive with this, but nothing equals to helping people. It just doesn't. And so Yep.
You can see it in your face, and I obviously anybody who's listening can also watch on YouTube. But yeah, you exuberate a beauty of life, and that fulfillment of your purpose is certainly evident in the stories and the way that you speak and the certainty and faith that you hold. And it's been inspirational to listen to. Thank you so much for all being vulnerable, sharing this story, sharing that miracle story at the end. I mean, it's so important for anyone who is, chronically ill, but also anybody who isn't, and, wanting to prevent something, which
prevent it. I'm going to start doing some group coaching for prevention, because I found out that not everybody is open with discussing their cancer. So a group for cancer patients, a group of 3 or 4. I tried that, and some folks says, "Man, I'm not, I'm not really feeling comfortable." But preventing is a different thing, because they can actually hold each other accountable, become accountability partners and stuff, and we have, in my case, when I'm meditating or playing the piano or writing a song or whatever, I think about it, and I'm thinking, man, I just have to do something to make these numbers better. 1 of the 2 men will have cancer, and 1 or 3, and all this chronic disease. And it was great to meet this guy. I meet people like you guys. I don't just go to a podcast, by the way, and I have to. No, this is a compliment to you guys.
Thank you.
Because I could do that, but it's it's just something that is intuition, and you say it, and guess what? Look what happened. We had an amazing.
Yes,
I was going to say you were their angel, and then I don't think it's a coincidence that the universe brought us together. We are very much in alignment with the views of life and health and wellness, and how we can really radically take responsibility for everything and then transform it. We have the power within us to do that. Yeah.
As a matter of fact, and I'm not doing any pitching here, if allow me, but my program the title of my program is Transform Your Health and Vitality. And then really the goal is so they can live their life, their best life, and with purpose. I ask my clients, when you heal, are you going to be the same person? And have you thought about why you're here? In this really non-renewable time that we have, which is really another issue. A lot of people are just walking, like Oscar Wilde says, us humans are the strangest thing. All we do is exist, and so I have it's one of I would say my mentors. I don't know him, but I read all his books. His name is Robin Sharma. You may have heard of him. He's Hindu descendant, but he's Canadian. He was born in Canada. And he says something that is really interesting. Most people live their same life for 85 times. No change at all. And no, that's not good.
It gets boring after a while. Georges, this has been just an absolute pleasure, and like I said, an honor. It's so inspirational. I know that you've mentioned a couple things, your program as well as the documents. I believe we have all of the links that we're going to put in the show notes for anybody who's listening, the audience that's curious about learning more and diving deeper into this transformational work that you provide so many people. So we're so gracious for you. But, if people do want to reach out and find you and, see what you're all about, where can they go to directly, maybe reach out?
Yeah, they can go to my website, which you'll have displayed down there. And now, if you allow me, I'll also share my Calendly. So they can, in both ways, either way, they can do a discovery or clarity session. It's complimentary. It's about half hour. And usually, as a giveaway, I give the first session for free, which is really creating a roadmap to their health.
Beautiful. That's very exciting. Thank you so much. Yes, we'll absolutely link that. That's such a generous offer. Jorge, thank you again. We'll always like to leave the space open to make sure, like, anything else that's on your heart that you want to part our listeners with here as we let you go.
Yeah, yeah. No one will believe in you until you believe in you.
Perfect.
Oh my gosh, what a divine way to end this conversation as I just got chills. That was absolutely beautiful. Jorge, thank you again for joining us today on The Deep Life.
Thank you guys. God bless you both. And this is not the first time we see each other. I have a feeling that I might even see you in LA when I see my son,
Yeah,
you
absolutely.
know, or do a talk somewhere, so.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Like I
love that.
said, the universe brought us together for a reason.
Yes. Take care. Thank you so much for inviting me.